Previously on Seals of Forgotten Time, Chapter 2. Ryoko stopped. "No. Just look at your friend, he's ready for anything," he said as they looked at Naruto. The blonde had his head down, his bangs overshadowing his eyes. A smirk was on his face as he started grinning. "You're right, Uchi-sensei, after all deception is the most basic skill a shinobi must have. If you're really up to the task, how about I show you just how strong I am?" he said, looking up, his Rinnegan eyes on full display. Get ready because here's the action in Chapter 3 of Seals of Forgotten Time. Disclaimer: I don't own Naruto, I don't need to. It would only result in a major change in Naruto's personality and broaden his range of techniques. I mean, really, he goes and gets a wind affinity and doesn't learn any techniques for it. If I was face to face with Naruto right now, I would slap him. Surprise was etched on the faces of everybody at the sight of the unknown purple Doujutsu. The sight of the Rinnegan will be the third time for Tobirama and the second time for Hiruzen. But it will forever be the first time anyone has witnessed the eyes with such intense concentration. The blonde stared at his opponent sensei, knowing that he was going to surprise his sensei with what's to come. Of course, he also knew that he wasn't going to be victorious in this fight. He wasn't meant to. It was a test of strength, a test to see just how strong he is and if he's anywhere near his old strength. Although substituting the raw and wild power of the Kyuubi for the precisely destructive power of the Rinnegan was bringing things along quickly. "Alright Naruto-kun, if you do well against this man, I'll give you some special technique training," the blonde heard his mother say from inside his mind. Naruto dropped into a stance. "No if, mother, when? And after I'm through with this fight, I'll be waiting for the training. I wonder what it's going to be?" he mused. The redhead rolled her eyes. "Overconfidence is never a good thing a shinobi should have. Just fight the man while I think about what I should teach you," she spoke firmly. Breaking their link after finishing talking, Naruto continued to focus on his sensei as he dropped into his own stance. "I knew you were going to be a sponge for knowledge immediately after our first lesson. I've taught you well about the art of deception," he said, chuckling. "Now let's see if you have the strength to back up your deception," he said, pushing his foot off the ground and jumping backwards as the blonde threw a flurry of shuriken. As Ryoko flew through the air, he threw his own set of shurikens at the previous set. Most of the thrown projectiles collided with each other. The others harmlessly flew by their intended targets. Naruto appeared behind Ryoko and sent a punch at the small of the man's back. The blonde knew the attack had the power to paralyze and ruin the career of any ninja, if it connected. He was not surprised when his fist phased through his teacher's body, disrupting the bunshin. You made the switch at precisely the last moment," Naruto mused out loud. "Nice speed," the Jounin said, backhanding the blonde. He was surprised when, instead of the blonde tumbling across the landscape, a puff of smoke clouded his vision. "Cage bunshin, but how?" The Jounin darted out of the small smoke screen only for his face to personally meet Naruto's fist. Ryoko was sent back into the fading smoke and out on the other side, where he righted himself and landed on his feet. "Impressive, Naruto-kun," he said, wiping a small amount of blood from his lip. "I don't know when you learned the Cage Bunshin no Jutsu, but I am impressed that you were able, but you're not the only one," he said, forming the familiar hand sign, and two clones appeared. "Let's see if your eyes can tell which one is the real me." Naruto smirked and glanced at Orochimaru for a short time, before returning his attention to his teacher. "Sure, let's do this," he said, running forward. He was about to veer to the right, straight for the real body, when the one in the middle cut him off with a punch to the jaw. He would be flying if he didn't duck under the punch and sweep the clone under his feet and proceed to do what he didn't think he would ever do correctly. "Konohidai-senpu," he said, repeatedly spin-kicking the clone, forcing it to dispel. He returned to his feet and promptly blocked the other clone's strike. With a quick and intense burst of power, he lifted the clone off his feet and held him over his head and slammed him on the ground, making it explode in a cloud of smoke. Ryoko watched from his spot with a focused gaze on his prodigy student. "Incredible," he simply thought. The blonde just exited the cloud and waited for it to clear, which wasn't long. He grinned. Yet again I'm impressed with the display I've witnessed. It's really a shame that I have to take this up a notch, Ryoko said, vanishing from everyone's sight and yet again appearing behind Naruto and backhanding the blonde. This time his hand connected and Naruto was sent somersaulting across the ground. You're way out of your league, kid. At the sight of their friend being backhanded by their teacher, each of the future Sannin clenched their tiny fist in anger. I know you three want to jump into the fight and help Naruto-kun, but this is his fight, Tobirama said, keeping a close eye on the blonde's performance. Tsunade looked at her granduncle. What do you mean his fight? Naruto-kun is fighting a Jounin. One-on-one, it's impossible for someone of Naruto's skill to defeat a Jounin. At least let us all join in and we all might have a chance at victory, the female blonde said, looking back to see Naruto being overpowered by one of Ryoko's specialized Kyunainifs. I'm sure Ryoko-san won't take things too far, Hiruzen said, looking at the man who was currently swinging his knife at Naruto, forcing him on the defensive. Naruto-kun knows what he's doing, Tsunade-chan. Living with and caring for the boy this past year has taught me this, the young man said, putting a hand on her small shoulder. Tsunade just frowned and looked at Jiraiya and Orochimaru, hoping they felt the same way as her. Jiraiya's attention was only on the fight, having never seen something so intense in his life. He watched his friend jumping over Chu-sensei and kicking the man in the back of the head. Yeah, kick his ass, he mumbled under his breath. Meanwhile Orochimaru watched his friend, curious about this bloodline of his. I knew I wasn't delusional. I always thought it was slight flashes of the orange sunlight that was changing the color of his irises from blue to purple. But it was his bloodline. What is the name for those magnificent eyes? He thought, continuing to stare into the moving eyes of his friend. Finding them amazing every second he gazed into their rippling beauty. Naruto kept on dodging Ryoko's persistent strikes. He really wanted to cut the blonde with that knife of his. It was then that Ryoko tried something new. He quickly threw his knife. Though Naruto wasn't expecting this, he was grateful that he was able to dodge with only a long, but shallow cut, along his right cheek. That wasn't all Ryoko did though. Naruto was in for a surprise as the Jounin did a dynamic entry and kicked Naruto in the side of his head. Though it wasn't meant to be, as Naruto leaned back, maneuvering himself around the outstretched leg and delivered a kick right into his teacher's baby maker. Every adult male in the vicinity groaned in pain at witnessing Ryoko get kicked in the nuts. Ooh, even I felt that, the young Uzumaki thought, hopping back a couple of meters. Meanwhile the ball-busted Jounin crouched to his knees, eyes clenched shut in pain. He couldn't even think, the pain was so intense. This wasn't no simple real-life civilian nut kick, no, this was a fanfiction, ninja-based, faster than a regular civilian can see, nut kick. Either way the pain affects us all. Kami, I hope he's alright, Naruto mumbled as his Rinnegan deactivated. Sensei, are you alright? He asked louder. Of course he's not alright, you just kicked him in the nuts. What man would be alright after that? Kushina questioned her son. Both on the outside and the inside, Naruto was truly sorry. He didn't mean to basically punt the man in the grenades. The blonde heard his sensei groan and mumbled something. What was that, sensei? He asked. I said I'm going to kill you. Ryoko mumbled again, rising to his feet, already in the process of completing hand signs. I'm going to kill you. Raiton, Panishinobaru. Lightning began crackling around Ryoko's mouth, before he hacked it out. The electrical ball of chakra headed towards the blonde. This all happened in the span of 3 seconds. The blonde should have known the Jounin would retaliate the way he was right now. He should have known that any man would be furious after recovering from the incident that just occurred 5 minutes ago. Well, it was a good thing he knew this was going to happen. Just not so fast. Thus he didn't fully dodge the attack. As the ball passed him and continued to travel into the forestry, the excess electricity shocked his right arm, rendering it useless for the time being. Ryoko didn't waste a second and vanished and reappeared on Naruto's right and kicked the numb arm, sending the boy into the forest, stopping only after he hit a tree. Yet again the Jounin went through a set of hand signs. Sutton, Mizuno Yuri. This time Ryoko spit out a large water spear straight at Naruto. Naruto's eyes widened upon hitting the tree, and it was impossible for them to widen any further upon seeing the large spear of water heading towards him. He quickly moved his head and covered it with his hands as the tree splintered and small, wet pieces of wood fly everywhere. "Get up!" his mother screamed, and he quickly got up and moved to another tree as 5 kunai embedded themselves in the tree. While behind the tree Naruto held his gnome arm. He looked around the tree, only to dodge another thrown kunai. Okay, so he's just waiting for me to come from behind this tree. Great, he thought with sarcasm. Well, it's time to get original, he thought, taking out 3 shuriken. He did a backflip, his feet landing on the tree, before he kept hopping up the tree. He went around the tree, landing on a branch and quickly threw his shuriken. The Jounin waited and waited. Before he looked up and seen 3 shuriken coming towards him, he effortlessly deflected them and seen Naruto coming at him from the sky. He was about to punch the kid when the clone dispelled and a cloud of smoke went up. His danger sense went up and he quickly jumped back, right before Naruto burst through the cloud with an orb of silver, swirling chakra, that immediately destroyed the ground, kicking up a lot of dirt. Ryoko was about to jump into the cloud of dirt when a hand grabbed his shoulder. "I think that's enough, Uchiha-san, I have seen all that was necessary," Tobirama said, clutching on Ryoko's arm to keep him from furthering his attack on Naruto. At this point Naruto emerged from the dirt cloud, his Rinnegan deactivated. "I'm sorry, sensei, for what I did. It was not my intention for that to happen. It just did," Naruto said with his hands up in surrender. Ryoko nodded after a minute of contemplation. "Good, now I have some great news unrelated to what just occurred. It seems Kumogakuer has never been part of the war, they just never seem to stop their militarizing of their army. Though I disagree with their actions, I'm glad I caught on to the faulty intel. It would have caused problems if we were to attack Kumo," the Nidaime said, causing many of the Jounin and Chunin in the area look at him in surprise. Naruto had a look of realization on his face, remembering that even though he hated history, that Kumo was never in the Second Ninja War, neither was Kiri, only Konoha, Suna, Iwa, and Aim. He thought, wondering when they'll enter the picture. Maybe not for years to come. Wait, wasn't Sarutobi the Hokage during this war? And didn't the Nidaime die during the First War? These questions came and went for the past year, never answered, for even his mother didn't know the answer. The only logical explanation would be that his traveling back in time has changed things further along the past. He shook his head as everything kept getting confusing. The more he thought about it, and the more he thought about it, the more he wished to leave it alone. He stopped when he felt a hand on his shoulder. The hand turned out to belong to his adoptive brother. "Excellent fight, most surprising. What was that technique at the end? I've never seen anything like it," he asked, causing Naruto to unnoticeably stiffen in realization. The blonde went through dozens of responses in his head before he picked the most likely one. "It's mostly the reason I've been training so hard for in the past year. It's the fruit of my efforts." He spoke with a foxy grin in place. You may have lost the fox, but you have kept everything that makes a fox a fox. Your cunningness and deceitfulness has only continued to grow ever since the disappearance of the Kyuubi," Kushina commented on Naruto's own response. Naruto grinned wider at hearing his mother. "So does this mean that the others and I are a part of your new team?" The man nodded, and this allowed Naruto to finally smirk. "That's good, now I can do this," he said, punching the man in the side, playfully of course. "You bastard, why'd you make me fight Uchiha-sensei?" Hiruzen chuckled. "That was sensei's idea, I just went along with it," he said, quickly surrendering, knowing that because he lived with a boy, the pranks would never stop. Tobirama looked at the two, mostly Hiruzen, glaring at him for so easily betraying him. He nervously chuckled, slowly backing up as Naruto and Tsunade stalked towards him. "Well, it wasn't like I planned on it or anything. It's use. Hey, what's that over there?" He pointed to the forest. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you want to be, the children looked and got fooled. Because when they found out they were fooled, the Nidaime was already gone. "I can't believe he got me," Naruto thought in shame. The blondes looked at each other. Go get him. At that the female blonde nodded and proceeded to chase down her granduncle. Now that that's settled, I have to congratulate you on your performance. I knew you could handle whatever I threw at you. If it was up to me, I would recommend that you entirely skip being a genin, Ryoko said, patting the blonde on the back. I wonder how you gained that strength in the first place, he said with a hand on his chin, thinking about the subject. Naruto nervously chuckled. Yeah, I guess I was born with it, he said, nervously laughing it off, with his hand rubbing his own head. Okay, Uchiha-san, stop making Naruto-kun nervous. Let's just be glad that he's on our side, Hiruzen said as he began walking away from the academy. I have important matters to attend to at the moment. Naruto-kun, I'll see you at home. The rest of you, I'll see you tomorrow at training ground 7. What you did here will pale in comparison to what I'm going to put you through, he said ominously before vanishing with a shunshin. What did he mean by that? Orochimaru asked, walking up to Naruto with Jiraiya on the other side. Naruto shrugged. I don't know, but I think we're going to have an even tougher training than what we just went through. You think? Now what the hell was that earlier? I had no idea you had that kind of strength. Jiraiya playfully pushed Naruto. And your eyes, how'd you get them? Also, you're a bastard for using them on us during those spars, Orochimaru said, slapping Naruto in the back of the head. With that hit, Naruto dropped to the ground, exhaustion finally getting to him. I wasn't expecting that. What the hell did you do? He's dead. No, you killed him, Jiraiya yelled, crouched down beside Naruto's body. Orochimaru's sweat dropped and looked around to make sure they were alone. He sighed in relief to see nobody around. I don't want anybody to know I hang out, idiots. Calm down, idiot, he's just unconscious. Our previous training and that fight drained his energy, Orochimaru said, shaking his head as he walked away to prepare for tomorrow. Jiraiya blushed in embarrassment. I knew that, he said, looking up and noticed nobody was around. Orochimaru must have went to continue training. I might as well do the same, the white-haired boy said, finding a better reason than returning to the orphanage. Thanks to his parents dying in the beginning of the war half a year ago, Naruto's body was left alone in the academy training ground. XXX a week later, XXX. Naruto sat in a tree inside of training ground 7 at 7 in the morning. He would always be the first one in the meeting place. Then Orochimaru would appear calling his name, in 3, 2, 1. And there he goes. Naruto, Naruto, Orochimaru said right on cue. After that, Sannin would appear telling Orochimaru to be quiet. Orochimaru, be quiet, it's too early for that, Sannin said, sitting under the tree, resting her own head against the bark. With that, they would be alone for about 10 minutes, Naruto resting in the tree, Sannin also resting under the tree, and Orochimaru finally giving up on calling Naruto and taking out a scroll to read. After their 10 minutes was up, Jiraiya would appear with bags under his eyes and would promptly drop to the floor 5 feet away from the others. Of course, nobody paid attention until he would raise his head and call out to Naruto. Naruto, Naruto. Then, like always, Sannin would groan in frustration and say, he's still not talking to either of you. She said, more like a statement than a question. But Jiraiya would always reply with, why not? Then Orochimaru would say, because you left him unconscious at the academy a week ago, the royal-looking boy said matter-of-factly. What? You left him first? Jiraiya yelled, crossing his arms. This time everything was different, as usually Naruto would remain quiet until Sannin would slap them both in the back of the heads. Would you both shut up? It still doesn't get rid of the fact that you both left me there. You're lucky. Sannin returned to pick me up. Hours later, the male blonde said, finally talking. The 2 other boys looked down sheepishly, while Sannin grinned in apparent victory. By now Hiruzen appeared. Are you ready for another day of hard training? He asked, grinning sadistically. At that, all 4 children groaned in pain. Sensei, can we take a break from training? I'm still sore from yesterday's exercise, Jiraiya said. Hiruzen chuckled. Oh come on, you should know my response by now, he said. Yeah, The soreness will go away with more training. You know, sensei, that isn't true. More training just makes me more sore. Tsunade said, pouting with her arms crossed. Hiruzen frowned for a second. Well, it's a good thing we aren't training today, we have a mission, he said, chuckling at their gasps of happiness. Really, sensei? Naruto said, appearing at Hiruzen's side faster than anybody could see. What is it? What is it? What is it? He repeated the question a dozen times before Tsunade covered his mouth with her hand. Calm down, Baka, he would have told us already, if you weren't talking, she said, struggling to keep Naruto still as he was thrashing around. Grab his legs, she told Orochimaru and Jiraiya. At that they tried to hold his legs down, but Naruto went and kicked Jiraiya in the chin and Orochimaru in the side of the head. Then he substituted himself for Jiraiya, gasping for breath. Damn, you got a grip on Yutsu-chan, he said, rubbing his jaw. Tsunade let Jiraiya go, feeling that he wasn't thrashing, and was glaring at Naruto. As soon as Jiraiya was let go, he sped towards Naruto. Sarutobi grabbed the back of his collar. Calm down, Jiraiya-kun. Naruto-kun didn't mean to kick you in the chin, he said, looking at Orochimaru to see him out cold. Damn, Naruto, you knocked Orochimaru-kun out. Looking at Naruto with surprise, the blonde waved his hand dismissively. Yeah, now what's this mission? And as Kami as my witness, if it's doing meaningless chores I'm going to kill you, he said with a serious look on his face. Okay, then we have two missions. We have to escort a diplomat to the capital of River Country, Sarutobi said. It's a C-rank escort mission, does that satisfy you? Naruto nodded. The other mission? The blonde asked. Yes, from there, we'll travel near the border of Kaze no Kuni and meet up with an informant. Really, a spy, awesome, Jiraiya said, shooting his arms in the air. Tsunade sighed from her spot beside Orochimaru. She had been looking at his head, making sure nothing was serious despite the outcome. After sighing, she was tossed a bottle smelling salts by Hiruzen. Orochimaru shot up. Oh, that stinks. Ugh, my head, he said, moaning in pain. Okay, now that Orochimaru's up, how about we get ready for those missions? Naruto said, leaving in a shunshin, only to return a second later. Where do we meet up? XXX 20 minutes later XXX. Naruto sat at a dango stand. He had been sitting there for the past 10 minutes. He had about 30 sticks of dango beside him. He leaned back, rubbing his stomach full of sweet dango. Ah, that was the best dango I've ever had. What's your secret, Ami-chan? He told the daughter of the shopkeeper. Naruto-kun, you know I can't give you the secret, even if you want to work here, she said, cutting him off. Ami was a young girl similar to Im. She had short blue hair and light purple eyes. She was only 8 years old and helped her mother with a dango stand. She wore a frilly dark purple dress and an apron over it. Though she was 2 years older than Naruto, she was shorter than him, by only about an inch or two. Just like between Im and Naruto, Ami and Naruto treated each other like siblings. Her mother adored Naruto, and he would constantly walk her to and from school, protect her from bullies, and he even gave her a couple of lessons in hand-to-hand combat, to better protect herself while he wasn't present. Ah, come on, Ami-chan, just give me part of the recipe and I'll think of the rest. No, yes, no, yes, I promise I won't tell anybody. Don't you have a mission to go to? The brunette said, crossing her arms. Oh shit, Naruto said, tossing money on the counter before vanishing with a shunshin. Ami collected the money on the counter, shaking her head. I'm so telling Mom. The blue-eyed boy ran through the streets. It was way bigger and more populated than he was used to. He was running so fast that he was surprised to find himself stationary, at 2 feet in the air, with his legs in front of him. Whoa, what's happening? He thought, quickly righting himself and landing on his feet. He could feel somebody's hand clutching his collar. The blonde looked to the right and followed the cream-colored hand to a dark red sleeve of what he already knew was going to be an elaborate and royal kimono. He continued to travel up the sleeve and noticed the kimono had a high collar. And continuing, he realized that seal tags were hanging from a hairpin that was holding the bun of a beautiful woman. She also had 3 clips keeping her bangs out of her eyes. He went back to the tags, and with a more analytical gaze, he couldn't remotely understand what the seal was. I see you have an interest in Finjutsu, not unlikely in an Uzumaki child. Naruto heard his mother gasp in his head, Mito-sama, Naruto, you be on your best behavior. The blue-eyed boy heard his mother tell him. The genin gulped for no apparent reason, finding it necessary to be respectful and no thinking like a fox. Are you Uzumaki Mito-sama? He asked. I am, and please no-sama, you will make me feel old, she said smiling. So humble. Okay, now how do I ask this without sounding a tad bit disrespectful? He thought, thinking for a quick second. No disrespect, Mito-san. But why are you holding on to my collar? She smirked and let him go. Because I have the skill to. I have much to talk to you about, Uzumaki Naruto. I'll be waiting when you return from your mission. Come to my manor, I'm sure you'll find a way without asking anybody, she said, turning and walking away. Naruto was left in the middle of the dirt street, speechless about what just happened. What just happened? Just because he was speechless doesn't mean he was thoughtless. You just met Mito-sama. She was and always will be the strongest wielder of the Rinnegan since the Sage of Six Paths. She was also the first Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, Kushina said, dropping a bomb. Naruto just raised an eyebrow as he walked to the south gate, knowing he would be there in a couple of minutes. So you were the second and me, the third. I wonder why the fox never told me this? He thought. You're not mad that I never told you I was the second container of the Kitsun? I knew that piece of information. The only question I have, now, is why is the Kyuubi gone? If I'm correct, Mito-san, and you both have the Rinnegan, and yet the Kyuubi was still in you, and not gone. But with me the fox is gone? He thought. Ask Mito-sama, I'm sure you can trust her with information like this. Kushina asked. Are you sure? If I ask her that, then I would have to say I'm from the future, and that would only raise further questions. Just trust me on this one. Now pay attention or you'll end up walking into the gate, the redhead said. Naruto's eyes had been blurry while talking with his mother, and they cleared up just in time to see the grains in the wall. He stopped immediately and released a sigh in relief. Backing up, he turned around. I can't believe none of you would have stopped me, he said, looking at his team. Tsunade laughed. I told you he wouldn't hit the wall. You both owe me 50 ryo, she said, holding out her hands. What, Tsunade won a bet? Naruto thought, looking around. Is the world ending? Who's going to die? While the Uzumaki was panicking, Sarutobi looked at his team. All right, you're going to have to wait a moment while I go and get the Kawa diplomat. He's 10 minutes late. He muttered the last part. XXX 3 hours later, XXX. The 5-unit team and the diplomat have been walking for 3 hours, and even though they covered quite a distance, having been in river country for little over 30 minutes, the boredom was painful. Orochimaru passed the boredom with a book in hand, but even reading was starting to get a little boring. Jiraiya and the diplomat was walking in the front, while Orochimaru and Tsunade was walking in the middle with Naruto and Hiruzen was walking behind. It was a classic pair strategy. The worst part about the boredom was that Jiraiya didn't know how to shut up. He was talking to the diplomat. So do you have a hidden weapon in case you get in trouble while in your own country? What do you have for breakfast every morning? Is it dangerous to go swimming in your rivers? The questions he was asking were all over the place, never staying on a single topic. The diplomat was a heavy-set man, with a dark blue eccentric kimono. It looked like a baby put it together. Pieces of it was cut into triangles, like the sleeves. The torso was a giant circle, and the obi was a giant rectangle. The kimono wasn't the only thing eccentric about the man. He too was talkative and would laugh at everything Jiraiya said. Of course the rivers are dangerous. You don't want to be eaten by alligators, do you? He said, laughing, his huge belly shaking with each ha. You would think the man would get tired of answering the amount of questions he was being asked, was the thought of the other 4 members of the team. Naruto looked around, becoming paranoid for some reason. He had experienced that every time he was on a supposed C-rank escort mission it always turned out to be a higher rank. He activated his Rinnegan and looked around for any sign of a chakra signature. He realized there was about 3 bodies of chakra nearby. Can you see them? They're hiding their chakra signature pretty well, but your eyes should be able to see them clearly. Hiruzen whispered to Naruto. Yeah, I can see them. The nature of their chakra are 2 winds and an earth. Obvious village origin would be Sana. The level of the chakra, I'm guessing 3 chunins. He said, his eyes glowing a light gray in the sun. I guess they are trying to rid the world of the professor, but I doubt they can even scratch you. The Rinnegan-wielding boy said, smirking. Let them handle it. He said, pointing at Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru. I'll protect the client, just in case the enemy gets desperate. He said, not even giving Hiruzen a chance to reply before doing a fast and short whistle. At that, Orochimaru and the others grew more attentive. With that whistle they knew that trouble was near and they needed to be ready. Orochimaru put away his book and Jiraiya stopped asking meaningless questions. What's wrong with you, boy? Don't you have any more questions? The man asked as Jiraiya slowly looked around. Naruto walked up to the other side of the client. Don't worry, he's just getting ready. Ready? Getting ready for what? At that, 3 figures shot out from the foliage headed straight for Hiruzen. The future Sannin also burst into action, each going after a single target, intent on protecting their sensei. XXX Orochimaru vs First Chunin XXX. Orochimaru appeared in front of the man, punching him in the chest, in the process. I won't allow you to get any closer to my sensei, he said, taking out a pair of kunai. The Chunin's feet slid along the ground. Because he didn't fall, he held his chest staring at the kid in front of him. What the hell, you're just a kid, how did you even know we were here? Orochimaru smiled. Don't worry about that, he said, running forward. The brown-haired Chunin threw a couple of kunai, only to see them being deflected by the little kid. After deflecting the thrown projectiles, Orochimaru slid under the man, cutting in the man's thighs. The man was lucky enough to substitute himself for a log. He reappeared over Orochimaru, doing a set of hand signs. Futon. Datopa. Orochimaru quickly jumped away, doing his own hand seals. Nothing apparently happened. Ha, a dud. You shouldn't have pretended to be a ninja, kid. You would have lived longer, he said before he noticed another Orochimaru inches away from him. He swung and it went past him. A bunchin? He thought before he quickly realized he was in a genjutsu and quickly dispelled it. When he came to reality, Orochimaru's foot was literally an inch from his face. The kick wasn't all that powerful, but when Orochimaru dropped to the floor and punched him in the solar plexus, the single punch was strong enough to make him hiccup, and that was it. He jumped back before he could get hit again. The kid's fast, I'll give him that. It's time to get serious, the brown-haired Chunin thought, doing a pair of hand seals. Let's see if you can take this. Futon, Ripushao. Orochimaru was quick enough to do his own hand seals and slam them on the floor. Doten, Daryuheki, he said as a wall of earth rose up from the ground in time to block the gale palm. Thank you, sensei, for this technique, he thought, feeling the technique stay intact. The Chunin frowned when he seen the wall withstand his gale palm. He rushed the wall, knowing the brat was hiding behind it. He went through a couple of hand seals and took a deep breath. Futon, Otsugai. He breathed out and the wall was immediately destroyed, but Orochimaru was nowhere to be seen. The unnamed Chunin looked around for his target, before he felt hands grab his ankles and drag him down into the earth, until only his head remained above the ground. With that finished, 2 Orochimarus rose up from the ground. I'm glad I created a clone. It was hard to pull you underground, even with it, he said, panting as he dispelled his earth clone. I can't believe I lost to this brat, the man thought as his head dropped in shame. XXX Tsunade vs Second Chunin XXX. Tsunade appeared over the second male Chunin. She grabbed his head and twisted her body and connected both of her feet on the man's chest, knocking him back. She wasted little time because before she even landed on the floor she was throwing 3 kunai. The first connected with the man's shoulder, the second, the man's other shoulder, and the third hit the man's left kidney. The man was saved from death. However, when he substituted right before the last Kyune pierced his skin, now replaced by a log, the man was surprised to find that he couldn't move either arm. "You little bitch, how did you do this?" he asked, his voice dripping with venom. Sannin smirked at the comment. "I pierced a cluster of nerves on each of your upper arms. In layman's terms, I permanently paralyzed your arms when I ripped those nerves apart," she said, running forward with a pair of kyune in her hands. Before the man could even move, she threw the kyune right at his feet, or should I say through his feet. The man screamed in pain and Sannin appeared behind him, with a kyune at his throat ready to cut into at any moment. "Give me a reason to cut your throat, I dare you, son of scum," she said. XXX Jiraiya vs third Chunin XXX. Jiraiya threw a kyune, hitting the last Chunin in the thigh, forcing the man to fall to the ground. Jiraiya then jumped, intent on landing on the man's back. He didn't expect the man to quickly roll over, using the momentum of his leg to knock Jiraiya out of the air and sending him far into the forest. When Naruto seen this, he dashed forward, not to save Jiraiya, but to hurry up and end the man. With his eyes he could see a massive amount of chakra focusing at the man's mouth. He appeared in front of his sensei and held out his hands, just as the man exhaled his futon kazakiri. Right before everyone's eyes, the technique was absorbed right into Naruto's hands. After the absorption was complete, Naruto dropped to his knees, panting in mild exhaustion. "That first test went better than I had thought," he thought, looking at his hands and seeing all the cuts. "I would have liked to test it against a water technique though," he thought, getting up. Hiruzen looked shocked at the blue and silver. "Naruto-kun, you can tell me what just happened later. Now I would like to know what's happening with your hair," he said, casually throwing a kyune at the Chunin's head. After deactivating his Rinnegan, he looked at Sarutobi with confusion all over his face. "What do you mean, what happened to my hair?" he asked comically, looking up at the strands of his hair. "Part of it's turning silver. I've noticed the past week that your blondiness was losing its golden sheen and gaining a little silvery sheen. But I always thought it was the sun," Sannin said, walking up to him after tying her captive up, and looking at his hair. At this, Naruto began thinking about stuff. This might be related to a lot of things: the color of my chakra, the disappearance of the QB a year ago, or my Rinnegan in general. Whatever it is, how come I haven't noticed anything in the past year? Naruto thought before a realization came to him. "Would all of you quit examining my hair?" he said, slapping Sannin's hand that was holding a lock of silver. After that he walked over to the paralyzed and bound Chunin. Sannin fought. "What is the reason for attacking this group?" he asked the Chunin. The man spit on the ground nearby. "I'm not telling you anything, Konoha scum." The hair-changing genin thought for a moment, before taking out a kyune. "You see this kyune?" he asked before that same kyune was found in the other Chunin's chest, with Naruto's arm still outstretched. "The same will happen to you, if you decide to try my patience." The Chunin scoffed. He was weak anyway, he lost to that brat over there. He deserved to die, he said. "You lost to a girl, what does that say about you?" "Hey, what is that supposed to mean?" Tsunade sat behind Naruto. Naruto looked behind him to see Tsunade with her arms crossed. Can we continue this some other time? I'm sort of busy extracting information." "Oh, we'll continue this all right," she said, walking back to her sensei and Orochimaru. Naruto looked back at his captive with a frown on his face. "Just tell me the real reason," he said, digging into his pouch, pulling out another kyune. "Fine, I'll tell you," he said, looking at the ground, before looking back up at Naruto with a smug look. "My team was assigned to take out the proclaimed professor of Kon." "Bullshit," Naruto said, grabbing the man's head. "You know damn well, if your village even wanted to put a scratch on Sensei, they would have sent an elite team of Dunes." "No, something is wrong with this picture," he said, reactivating his Rinnegan and taking a deep breath. The others stood there in confusion as the man's eyes grew wider than they could possibly imagine, but they themselves couldn't see anything. "Now I'm going to ask you again, what is your prime objective?" "My team was more of scouting, lookout, extended border kind of squad. We were making sure nobody was on their way to Sana." Naruto looked at him funny. You're not making sense. What is Suna planning? An attack on Konoha, cutting through Aim no Kuni and attacking the village in the cover of night from their north flank. The man answered. The genin waited for a while, and when he noticed the man not dropping dead, he nodded. That appears to be the truth. Susuna is planning to cut through Aim no Kuni and invading the village from our north flank. It's smart. We wouldn't be expecting an invasion so early in the war, Naruto said, looking behind him to see a large head surrounded by purple flames. Its mouth was wide open and his hand-like tongue was out holding the man's tongue. Looking higher into the giant head's eyes you can see the Rinnegan. When is this invasion going to happen? I don't know the exact day it's going to happen, I just know that it's not going to happen for a long time. It could be weeks, months, or even years. The Jado, or outer path, discerned that the man was telling the truth and let go of his tongue, forcing the man to begin gasping for breath, seemingly out of energy and completely exhausted. With its job done, the Jado returned into the ground, going back from whence it came. Naruto stood up, his Rinnegan still activated. Jado, may have spared you, but I won't, he said, throwing the kunai at the man's head, while deactivating his bloodline. Before he looked back at his team and seeing their scared looks, Sarutobi looked at Naruto with a frown on his face. It was obvious that at times Naruto acted more than his age and thought more maturely, but to actually act more ruthless. Now that was scary for everyone to see. Tsunade looked as Naruto not only killed one, but two people just to get information out of somebody. She was terrified of the boy. Maybe his bloodline was making him this way. Orochimaru on the other hand looked positively fascinated at how resourceful the Rinnegan was. It had the ability to extract information out of somebody with just a simple glare. It was possibly better than the even more mysterious Sharingan and with no doubt, better than the Byakugan. Truly amazing. Naruto's mind went a mile a minute, thinking of how he could explain what just happened. Where's Jiraiya? He asked, looking around for the boy. This got everybody out of their terrified trance, as they begun looking for the lost boy. Naruto sighed as he walked into the forest. You have to be careful when you act ruthless like that. You're supposed to be a new, wet behind the ears, but with better skills, 6-year-old Genin. Kushina scolded her son. But amazing completion of 2 ocular techniques. You'll no doubtingly be powerful if you keep this up, not stronger than me of course, but yeah, you'll have power. Naruto could hear the smugness in her voice. He rolled his eyes while heading straight for Jiraiya's position. He could obviously see a strange and yet somehow familiar kind of chakra signature disappear and reappear over there. So if he knew his sensei's history, he wanted to waste as much time as possible. XXX Kawano Kuni capital XXX. The 4 genin sat outside of a building where Hiruzen was talking with the diplomat, most likely getting thanked and receiving a personal reward for the mission. The dual-colored genin sat twiddling his thumbs waiting for the start of the second mission. His teammates, save Jiraiya, has been avoiding making eye contact ever since his interrogation, and thanks to his first childhood he needed some kind of attention. He turned his attention to Jiraiya. So Jiraiya, something amazing happened to you recently, huh? He asked. Jiraiya couldn't resist nodding. It sure did, he said, whispering into Naruto's ear, and the more that was whispered the more Jiraiya seemed to grin. The grin was contagious and Naruto became grinning. Congratulations are in order, but why are you keeping it a secret? Jiraiya just shook his head and pointed to Sarutobi, who was walking out of the building. Now that that's settled, I believe we have another mission to complete, he said, bending backwards to crack his back. We can finally speed up the pace, so remember your tree climbing exercise and follow me, he said, hopping to the rooftops and blasting into the nearby forest, with his team following. XXX Konohagakure XXX. Tobirama sat in his chair holding a piece of paper, sent by his prized student and his team. So Sana, when are you going to attack? He thought to himself. It was obvious that he should up his defenses everywhere, instead of just focusing on the north, just in case that team was meant to be caught and gave away false information. Also, to strengthen his defenses in one spot would only weaken his defenses in another. He came to the decision to keep his defenses the way they were, and when the time came to meet Sannin head-on, in aim, fighting would not occur in Hinokuni at all. I'll have to thank Hiruzen for this information. I'll give him something special pretty soon, he said, looking at a picture of his brother on the wall. Something's going to happen to me soon. I just have to be prepared and take the initiative to make sure this village has a strong leader to lead it to victory. He thought again, looking at his broken teacup. XXX Omak Jiraiya's time alone. XXX. Jiraiya flew through the forest, before his body collided with something hard and yet furry. Oh, he said, sliding on the furry thing. He heard a roar and immediately jumped off the thing. He turned and seen a bear, as tall as him. He screamed as the bear swung at him. He jumped over the swing, landing on the bear's head, and kicking off of it, landing in front of what he believed to be a frog. What in the world, what's a frog doing fighting a bear? He questioned out loud. I'm not a frog, I'm a toad, the amphibian said, surprising Jiraiya. Jiraiya wasn't given the chance to faint as the bear attacked again. He and the toad jumped away from the strike. You know, you're pretty big for a toad, Jiraiya commented the toad's size. Really, I never noticed, the toad said, hopping at the bear and kicking him in the chest. Wow, that was fast. You're not a regular toad, are you? Jiraiya asked as the toad landed near him. Really, what gave that away? The toad asked sarcastically. Well, first of all, you're very rude, Jiraiya said, running at the bear, and after ducking under said bear's strike he threw a kunai at it. He missed when the bear dropped to all fours. Oh please, the toad said, if you were attacked by a bear, you will be rude to whoever's around you too, it said, hopping over the bear's charge. So do you croak or ribbit? The toad looked at him like he was stupid, before he chuckled. You know what, I like you, kid, he said, putting a webbed hand on the Jiraiya's head. Oh, that's nasty, he said, moving from under the webbed hand. How about after the battle, you sign the toad contract? The toad offered. Jiraiya's eyes widened at the offer, and he quickly did a sequence of hand seals. And the fireball hit the bear straight in its chest, and it screamed in pain and headed for the nearby river and jumped in. You're a summoned toad? He asked, nearly screaming it in excitement. The toad only stared in awe at how quick the little kid got rid of the bear. Yes, I am. So that's why you can talk, Jiraiya said, slapping his forehead. And you're giving me a chance to sign your contract. Sweet Kami, this is the best first mission in my life, he said, falling on his back. At that the toad disappeared and a second later reappeared with a scroll in hand. He hopped to Jiraiya and tripped, the scroll flying and landed on Jiraiya's stomach. Ah! He screamed in surprise at the large scroll. This thing is huge, he said, looking at the red toad. What's your name anyway? Jiraiya said, unrolling the scroll and properly signing the scroll with the toad's instruction. It's Glamakin, and sorry for dropping the scroll on your stomach. I'm clumsy. And I'm finished with this chapter. Next chapter is going to have the rest of the mission, Naruto's talk with Mito, and I'm thinking a time skip. I, for one, am tired of writing Naruto as a kid, but I still have business in this time. Yet again, you guys and girls surprise me with the amount of reviews for the last chapter. I believe it was just under 50 reviews. Thank you everybody that reviewed, and don't forget to do it once again for this chapter. Questions were asked, but will they be answered? Find out next chapter. JJ is out of this piece.